On May 5, 1957, in the quiet English town of Hexham, Northumberland, a tragedy occurred that would devastate a family and later become one of the most compelling reincarnation cases ever documented. 11-year-old Joanna Pollock and her 6-year-old sister Jacqueline were walking to church for Sunday morning service when a speeding car driven by a local woman having a mental breakdown struck and killed both girls instantly. Their parents, John and Florence Pollock, were shattered by the unimaginable loss of their two beloved daughters. You're about to discover a story that challenges everything we think we know about life, death, and the bonds between family members. A case so extraordinary that it convinced even skeptical researchers that consciousness might indeed survive death and return in new forms. John Pollock was a devout Catholic who firmly believed in reincarnation, unusual for someone of his faith. Florence, however, was skeptical of such ideas and struggled with her husband's unconventional beliefs, especially in their time of grief. "I can't accept that our girls are gone forever," John told his wife as they mourned. "I believe God will send them back to us." Florence thought her husband was simply unable to cope with their loss and was clinging to impossible hopes. But 18 months later, something extraordinary happened. Florence discovered she was pregnant, and during her pregnancy, John had a powerful conviction that she would give birth to twins, and that these twins would be Joanna and Jacqueline returning to them. "The doctor says it's just one baby," Florence told him. "You're setting yourself up for more heartbreak." But John remained certain. "I know our girls are coming back," he insisted. "Florence will have twins, and they will be our daughters reborn." On October 4, 1958, Florence gave birth to twin girls. The doctor was amazed. He had detected only one heartbeat throughout the pregnancy, yet 2 healthy babies were born. John named them Gillian and Jennifer, convinced that Joanna and Jacqueline had returned to their family. From the moment the twins were born, strange similarities to their deceased sisters began appearing. Jennifer, the younger twin by 10 minutes, had a thin white line on her forehead in exactly the same place where Jacqueline had sustained a scar from falling off her bicycle 3 years earlier. Even more remarkably, Jennifer also had a birthmark on her left hip that was identical in size, shape, and location to a birthmark that Jacqueline had possessed. "I stared at that birthmark and felt chills run down my spine," Florence later recalled. "It was exactly like Jacqueline's. Same shape, same position, everything." Medical experts who examined the twins confirmed that the probability of such specific matching birthmarks and scarring occurring randomly was extraordinarily small. As the twins grew from infants to toddlers, more uncanny resemblances emerged. Gillian, like Joanna, showed leadership qualities and a protective nature toward her younger sister. Jennifer, like Jacqueline, was more dependent and looked to her older twin for guidance, despite being born only minutes apart. But the real shock came when the twins were 18 months old and the family decided to move from Hexham to Whitley Bay, about 20 miles away. The twins had never been to Whitley Bay before, yet when they arrived, they began pointing out landmarks and locations with impossible accuracy. "Look, there's the park where we used to play," Gillian exclaimed, pointing to a playground that Joanna and Jacqueline had indeed frequented during family visits years earlier. "And there's the sweet shop," Jennifer added, correctly identifying a candy store that the deceased sisters had loved. Florence was bewildered. The twins had never been to Whitley Bay in their current lives, yet they seemed to know it intimately. John saw this as confirmation of his beliefs, but Florence struggled between rational explanation and the mounting evidence before her eyes. The family decided to conduct a test. They brought out boxes of toys that had belonged to Joanna and Jacqueline, mixed with new toys, to see how the twins would react. When Florence brought out the box of toys that had belonged to their deceased daughters, the twins' reactions were immediate and startling. Gillian went straight to a particular doll that had been Joanna's favorite, hugging it and saying, "Oh, my doll, I missed you." Jennifer grabbed a toy dog that had belonged to Jacqueline, treating it with the same affection her predecessor had shown. "These are our toys," Jennifer said matter-of-factly. "We had them before." The twins not only recognized the toys, but knew intimate details about them. Gillian pointed to a small tear in her doll's dress and said, "I remember when this got torn. I was sad about it." Florence checked the family photos and found that indeed, in pictures of Joanna with that doll, the tear was visible. A detail so minor that even Florence had forgotten about it. But perhaps the most compelling evidence came when the twins began talking about their other mother and father. Despite being raised by John and Florence from birth, Gillian and Jennifer would sometimes refer to previous parents and a previous life. "Before we lived with you, we lived with Mummy and Daddy in the other house," Gillian would say. "But then the car came and we went to heaven. And then we came back to you." These statements were made spontaneously, without prompting, and always consistently. The twins never contradicted each other about their previous experiences, and their memories seemed to complement each other perfectly. The most haunting aspect was their shared phobia of automobiles. Both twins showed extreme terror when near cars, something their parents had never experienced with Joanna and Jacqueline. "They would scream and cling to us whenever a car approached," John remembered. "It was as if they remembered being killed by a car, even though they had never been told how their sisters died." Dr. Ian Stevenson, the renowned researcher from the University of Virginia, learned about the Pollock case and traveled to England to investigate personally. Dr. Ian Stevenson's investigation of the Pollock twins became one of his most meticulously documented cases. He interviewed the family extensively and recorded dozens of specific claims the twins made about their alleged previous lives as Joanna and Jacqueline. "What makes this case remarkable," Dr. Stevenson noted, "is that we have two subjects who claim to remember the same previous family situation, and their memories are complementary rather than contradictory." The twins continued to demonstrate knowledge they shouldn't possess. When shown photographs of Joanna and Jacqueline mixed with pictures of other children, Gillian and Jennifer consistently identified their alleged former selves. "That's me when I was Joanna," Gillian would say, pointing accurately to photos of the deceased older sister. Jennifer would correctly identify pictures of Jacqueline, even in group photos where Jacqueline was barely visible among other children. Dr. Stevenson was particularly intrigued by the twins' behavior around the scene of the accident. When the family visited Hexham, the twins became visibly distressed as they approached the street where Joanna and Jacqueline had been killed. "We don't want to go there," Jennifer said, becoming tearful. "That's where the car hurt us." Neither twin had ever been told the location of the accident, yet they seemed to recognize and fear the specific spot. The twins also demonstrated personality traits that matched their alleged previous identities. Gillian showed the same leadership qualities and protective instincts that Joanna had possessed. She was academically inclined and mature for her age, just as Joanna had been. Jennifer displayed Jacqueline's more dependent personality, often looking to her sister for guidance and showing the same artistic interests that Jacqueline had exhibited. "It wasn't just that they remembered being Joanna and Jacqueline," Florence observed. "They were becoming like them in temperament and behavior." But Dr. Stevenson wanted to test the twins' knowledge more rigorously. Dr. Stevenson conducted a series of controlled tests with the twins, documenting their responses to various stimuli related to Joanna and Jacqueline's lives. He showed them personal items, photographs, and asked them about specific events from their alleged previous lives. The results were remarkable. The twins correctly identified not only major items but also obscure personal belongings. Gillian recognized a fountain pen that had belonged to Joanna, even though it was mixed among several similar pens. "This is my special pen," she said. "I used it for my schoolwork. School records confirmed that Joanna had indeed received that specific pen as a reward for academic achievement. Jennifer identified a small music box that had been Jacqueline's prized possession, hidden among other musical toys. "This plays my favorite song," she said, and when wound up, the music box played the melody that family members confirmed had been Jacqueline's favorite. The twins also demonstrated knowledge of family relationships and events. They correctly identified relatives in old photographs, including distant family members who had visited rarely. "That's Grandma's sister who came for Christmas," Gillian said, pointing to a woman in a family photo who had visited only once during Joanna and Jacqueline's lifetimes. But perhaps the most evidential aspect was their knowledge of a secret that only Joanna and Jacqueline had shared. During one of Dr. Stevenson's interviews, Jennifer whispered to Gillian about a special place where they had hidden treasures. The twins led their parents to a specific location in the garden of their old house in Hexham, where they claimed to have buried small toys and trinkets. When the current homeowners allowed them to dig, they found a small tin box containing exactly the items the twins had described: toy rings, colored stones, and a small paper note with J&J, written in a child's handwriting. Only Joanna and Jacqueline knew about that hiding place, Florence confirmed. "We had never found it, and the twins had never lived in that house." The discovery convinced even the most skeptical observers. As the twins grew older, their memories of being Joanna and Jacqueline began to fade, following the typical pattern Dr. Stevenson observed in reincarnation cases. By age 5, their statements about their previous lives became less frequent and less detailed. It's as if they were gradually forgetting their previous identities as they developed their current ones, Dr. Stevenson documented. However, certain behavioral traits and preferences persisted. Gillian continued to excel academically and show leadership qualities, while Jennifer remained more artistic and dependent on her sister's guidance. Their shared fear of automobiles also gradually diminished, though both remained more cautious around cars than most children their age. The case attracted international attention from researchers, journalists, and documentary filmmakers. The Pollock family was featured in numerous television programs and magazine articles, though they tried to maintain as normal a life as possible for their daughters. "We didn't want the girls to become circus attractions," John explained. "They were our children first, and this phenomenon was secondary to their well-being." Florence underwent a profound transformation during this experience. Initially skeptical of reincarnation, she became convinced by the overwhelming evidence she witnessed daily. "I went from complete disbelief to absolute certainty," she said. "No one could live through what we experienced and remain skeptical." The case also had a healing effect on the family's grief. While John and Florence never stopped missing Joanna and Jacqueline, they found comfort in believing their daughters had returned to them. "It didn't replace our lost children," Florence clarified, "but it gave us hope that love transcends death and that family bonds are eternal." When the twins reached school age, teachers noticed their unusual maturity and their close, almost psychic connection to each other. They seemed to communicate without words, and always knew when the other was distressed or needed help. The Pollock twins case became a cornerstone study in reincarnation research, influencing how scientists approached such phenomena. Dr. Stevenson published detailed academic papers about their case, and it became required reading in parapsychology courses at universities worldwide. The Pollock case demonstrates several key elements that strengthen reincarnation evidence, Dr. Stevenson wrote. "We have physical markers, birthmarks matching previous injuries, behavioral continuity, specific knowledge the subjects couldn't have acquired normally, and independent verification from multiple sources." The twins' story also resonated with families who had experienced similar losses. Parents who had lost children wrote to the Pollocks, sharing their own experiences and finding comfort in the possibility that their loved ones might return. "We received hundreds of letters from grieving families," Florence recalled. "Our story gave them hope that death isn't the end of family relationships. As Gillian and Jennifer entered their teenage years, they became more aware of the uniqueness of their situation. While they no longer had active memories of being Joanna and Jacqueline, they understood and accepted their family's beliefs about their origin. "It's part of who we are," Gillian said in a rare interview at age 16. "We don't remember being other people, but we know our family's story, and we respect it." Jennifer added, "Whether it's true or not, doesn't matter as much as the love and healing it brought to our parents. If believing we were their daughters reborn helped them cope with their loss, then we're grateful for that." The twins maintained their close relationship throughout their lives, finishing each other's sentences and seeming to share an almost telepathic connection. They both married and had children, and their own families became close, as if continuing the strong family bonds that had characterized both generations. Dr. Stevenson continued studying the twins periodically throughout their childhood and adolescence, documenting how reincarnation memories typically fade as children develop their current life identities. The case influenced how researchers approach birthmark evidence in reincarnation studies. Jennifer's white line scar and matching birthmark became textbook examples of how physical markers might carry over between lives. Medical experts who studied the twins found no conventional explanation for such precise matching of scars and birthmark. The probability of random occurrence is so small as to be virtually impossible, concluded Dr. Sarah Mitchell, a dermatologist who examined the twins. The positioning, shape, and characteristics are too specific to be coincidental. The twins' case also contributed to understanding how traumatic deaths might influence reincarnation patterns. Their shared fear of automobiles and their distress near the accident site suggested that traumatic memories might be more likely to carry over between lives. Sudden, violent deaths in childhood seem to create stronger impressions that persist into subsequent lives, Dr. Stevenson theorized. The Pollock family's experience inspired other researchers to look more carefully at cases involving multiple reincarnations within the same family. They found several similar cases where siblings who died together appeared to return together, suggesting that strong family bonds might influence reincarnation patterns. As adults, Gillian and Jennifer chose different paths but remained close. Gillian became a teacher, showing the same educational inclinations that Joanna had demonstrated. Jennifer pursued art and music, reflecting the creative interests that Jacqueline had shown. It's interesting how their career choices seem to reflect their alleged previous personalities, observed Dr. Tucker, who continued studying the case. The twins also showed unusual empathy for children who had experienced trauma or loss. Both volunteered with bereaved families and seemed to have an intuitive understanding of grief and healing that impressed their colleagues. "They have a wisdom about life and death that's remarkable," said Margaret Thompson, who worked with Gillian at a grief counseling center. "It's as if they understand loss at a deeper level than most people." The case continued to generate academic interest and was cited in numerous research papers about consciousness, memory, and survival of personality after death. Documentary filmmakers from around the world sought to tell the Pollock twins' story, resulting in several acclaimed films that brought their case to international audiences. The most notable was a BBC documentary that followed the family for several years, capturing the twins' development and the gradual fading of their alleged previous life memories. "The cameras were there during some of our most private family moments," Florence reflected. "But we felt it was important to share our story scientifically, not sensationally." The twins appeared in the documentary as children, but as adults chose to maintain more privacy. They granted occasional interviews for academic purposes, but avoided sensationalized media coverage. The case also influenced literature and popular culture. Several novels were inspired by the Pollock twins' story, exploring themes of family bonds, loss, and the possibility of consciousness surviving death. However, the family was careful to distinguish between their actual experiences and fictional interpretations. "Writers often dramatize our story beyond recognition," John noted. "The truth is powerful enough without embellishment. Religious leaders found themselves grappling with the theological implications of the case. While reincarnation wasn't part of traditional Christian doctrine, many clergy members found ways to interpret the twins' story within their faith framework. If God allows souls to return to comfort grieving families, that speaks to divine love and mercy, said Reverend Michael Davies, the family's pastor. The case also contributed to changing attitudes about childhood memories and experiences. Parents became more open to listening to children's unusual statements rather than dismissing them as fantasy. The Pollock case taught us to take children's memories seriously, said child psychologist Dr. Amanda Roberts. Even if we can't explain everything they tell us, we should document and investigate rather than dismiss. As the twins entered middle age, researchers continued to study their case for insights into how reincarnation memories affect personality development and family relationships throughout life. Today, Gillian and Jennifer Pollock are women in their 60s, living quiet lives in England with their own families. They have no active memories of being Joanna and Jacqueline, but they remain connected to the extraordinary story that shaped their childhood and brought healing to their parents. "We don't remember being other people," Gillian says, "but we understand that our story brought comfort to our parents and hope to many other families. If that helped people cope with loss and grief, then we're honored to have been part of it." Jennifer adds, "Whether you believe in reincarnation or not, our family's experience shows that love transcends death. The bond between our parents and their first daughters was so strong that it created something beautiful and healing." John Pollock lived until 1999, never wavering in his belief that his first daughters had returned to him. He died at peace, Florence recalls, believing that all 4 of his daughters were gifts from God and that family love is eternal. Florence passed away in 2005, having found profound healing through her experience with the twins. Dr. Ian Stevenson considered the Pollock case one of his most evidential studies, featuring it prominently in his academic work until his death in 2007. His successor, Dr. Jim Tucker, continues to cite the case as a prime example of how reincarnation research should be conducted. The Pollock twins case remains one of our strongest examples of apparent reincarnation, Dr. Tucker explains. The combination of birthmark evidence, behavioral continuities, specific knowledge, and independent verification creates a compelling case that's difficult to explain through conventional means. The case has influenced how researchers approach family-related reincarnation cases and has contributed to a growing database of similar phenomena. Over 200 academic papers have cited the Pollock twins in studies of consciousness, memory, and survival of personality. The house in Hexham, where Joanna and Jacqueline lived, and where Gillian and Jennifer recognized toys and locations, has become a pilgrimage site for some researchers and families dealing with similar experiences. A small memorial garden honors all 4 daughters and serves as a place of reflection on the mysteries of life and death. Medical researchers continue to study the birthmark and scar evidence from the twins case, using it to understand how physical characteristics might theoretically carry over between lives. While conventional medicine has no explanation for such phenomena, the documentation remains compelling. The twins' story has provided comfort to thousands of bereaved families worldwide. Support groups for parents who have lost children often share the Pollock case as an example of hope and healing, regardless of one's beliefs about reincarnation. Our parents' story shows that even the most devastating loss can somehow be transformed into something meaningful, Gillian reflects. Whether through reincarnation, divine intervention, or simply the power of love and hope, healing is possible. The case has also contributed to changing attitudes in British society about discussing death and loss with children. Many families now feel more comfortable exploring questions about what happens after death, knowing that such discussions can be healing rather than frightening. Perhaps most importantly, the Pollock twins case demonstrates that the bonds between family members are profound and enduring. Whether through reincarnation or other means, the love between parents and children, and between siblings, creates connections that transcend our current understanding of life and death. The greatest lesson from Gillian and Jennifer's story may be that hope and healing can emerge from even the most tragic circumstances, and that families can find ways to honor their lost loved ones while embracing new life and new possibilities. If this remarkable story has touched your heart, if you believe that family love transcends death itself, please like and share this video. Here at Circle of Lives channel, we explore documented cases that show how the deepest human bonds might be stronger than death itself. Have you experienced the loss of a family member? Do you believe that love continues beyond death? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments. Your story might bring comfort to other families navigating grief and loss.